Welcome to the Cosmic Broadcast, created by fans for fans of comic book media. We're happy to have you with us today. All we ask is that you sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, so there are 6 total MCU shows that have been released so far. And today, we're going to look at our list of our ranking 1 through 6. We're going to start with 6 being the least, 1 being the most impactful to us. And let's get it started. Mike, what you got?
So in my ranking, obviously, I think we can all agree, Hawkeye is on the bottom of that list. For me, I don't connect with Hawkeye like that.
So what's the reasoning?
I don't connect with Hawkeye for real. I mean, as a hero, I mean, the show to me wasn't grabbing me as much as all the other shows were. The only thing that I can honestly truly say was 2 things that were kind of a good little mix they threw in there was throwing Yelena at us because of the whole Black Widow situation, and then us seeing Kingpin at the end of that, that little teaser. Because we all know when it comes to New York, when it comes to Hell's Kitchen, Daredevil's close, Spider-Man's close, and Kingpin's got to be right around the corner somewhere. So that's my good take on it, for real, honestly.
I respect that. So I would say my 6 on the list is Falcon and Winter Soldier.
I knew it. Freaking knew it.
So I have a couple of reasons why. By the way, every single episode or every single season that's come out for each of these shows, I've started out wanting to like every single one of them.
100%.
I never go in expecting to.
100%.
That's what Marvel's done for us. They set the expectation for greatness, and I expect greatness every single season.
Yeah.
So Falcon Winter Soldier, I found to be extremely messy. I understand where they're coming from. I see the vision. But they kept falling over stuff every single step of the way.
I agree.
They're tripping over plot points that were not refined. The script was clunky. The action was worse. You never want to call an MCU show boring, and that show was boring. They massacred my boy the Winter Soldier because they started out with this awesome plot point. They started out with this awesome plot point of his mental health. And they completely pushed it to the side. Sam is my dude. I've loved Sam since Winter Soldier, Captain America Winter Soldier. But it really felt like they had to kind of step on some previous superheroes in order to make Sam take the reins from Steve Rogers. Because in a way, it really felt like, especially halfway through, they started to make Steve look, dare I say, less and less like a hero in order to prop Sam up. Which it's something that I necessarily don't agree with because we've been given 10 years of Steve. And Sam is a great character. I just don't think it's right to step on previous characters to elevate him. Now, I also had a bigger problem with the villain, Carly, because
me too, actually.
By the end of the show, they basically had Sam prop her up and say she is a hero. She's doing the right thing. You guys just don't understand her. Well, she's blowing up trucks full of people and literally committing mass terrorism. And they're like, no. She meant well. It's like, I'm sorry. You're not going to blow up a whole bunch of people and then become a terrorist, and then you tell me to accept the fact that she's good only because Sam told me so.
Right. And the fact being, it's Captain America. Since Captain America said it, it's got to be right? It's got to be right.
The script was too blunt and too. There was no delicateness handling these deep, dark situations, and these are important situations to talk about. They just didn't handle it right, in my opinion.
You know what? I can actually agree with you, which is why we us going into number 5 is why I have Falcon and the Winter Soldier at number 5. Pretty much for all the points that you said. I think the reason why I have it at number 5, probably for a more personal reason. Number 1, them bringing in the Dora Milaje. That scene was, I loved it. I loved them. I loved the fact that, God, please bring me on my boy's name that was Captain America.
The guy who plays U.S. Agent.
The guy who played John Walker. So that whole entire scene where he thought he was a badass, he's Captain America, he's got the shield, and she's like, so? And of course, them just throwing in the whole racial discrimination. Like Steve Rogers they loved him as Captain America. Now it's like you get Falcon, it's like, I don't like him. And we all kind of knew why. We all knew why. And I don't like getting political with other things, but I liked that they just had to throw that in there. And also when it comes to these types of shows, I like this show, but I think what I look at when it comes to the show more sometimes is how they're setting up for something new or something more. For example, Elijah, the black dude that was if I'm not mistaken, who was the actual like one of the first soldiers, or not Winter Soldier, but like Captain America, Super Soldier
2.0 basically.
2.0.
Yeah.
Him having a nephew, and please remind me of his name, because again, that show I watched it, and I cannot remember it a whole lot.
I'm so sorry, I'm blanking on
but
that.
But his nephew more than likely has the gene within him, and that is kind of I would like to assume that that's going to be setting up for the Young Avengers, correct?
I believe so.
In my personal opinion, that's what I like about certain shows or movies. If the movie itself isn't good, whatever, I look into the fact that it's setting up something else. So that's probably why, Falcon Winter Soldier is a little bit higher than Hawkeye. But I will agree with you. Very messy, very just kind of all over the place.
So my number 5 is What If? And this is a slightly...
you're messing me up.
It's slightly controversial, but this is 100% a personal opinion. I found What If to be extremely boring, and even though they tried to do a bunch of things, it didn't have any consequences. It lacked any sort of stakes, because we're going back, and it felt like one of those Saturday morning cartoons where it's just your episode of the week, where this is kind of cute, this is kind of cool that they teased little things, but in the grand scheme of things, unless they do something major in the future to pay them off, it just didn't feel right because it was boring. I get that we get to see Captain Carter pick up the shield. That was cool, but then once you get past that first 5 minutes of novelty, the rest of the episode is okay. All right. Like the second to last, I think, the Thor party episode, I was rolling my eyes the whole way through, because I was like,
that episode was like,
if you would have told me this was a show made for kids, I would receive it a whole lot better, because I've been like, I can understand that. But they marketed it as one of the Disney Plus Marvel shows. And when you put it in that echelon with all of the other shows, I'm going to judge it the same way I would judge any other ones. And so for me, I just don't find it something that I was necessarily attracted to. There's no deep reasons why. I hold no grudges against it whatsoever, but when I turned it off, I went about my day and it was like nothing ever happened. So that's my personal opinion.
I can agree with you, man. A lot of What If kind of was the same with Falcon and Winter Soldier. It was a little bit everywhere. It's kind of all over the place. Going into number 4, I actually have What If at number 4. I think I got it at number 4 because I just like animation. I've always loved animation, whether it was animated itself or just an animated movie, show, whatever. On top of that, I am a big What If kind of guy. The show itself not necessarily being as great as the other ones, but I'm like I said, I'm such a What If kind of guy. Seeing T'Challa being Star-Lord, wow, that's interesting. Not necessarily was good, but it's interesting. Okay, Thanos is good. That's interesting. Captain Carter, that's interesting. Ultron, the whole Ultron situation,
that was a
Watcher. You know what I'm saying? Like I guess I like doing the whole What If situation. And that maybe that's why I got a little bit more excited about it. I'm with you on it a little bit. There were some parts where it was just boring, but again, I'm just the type that, since I love What If type of deals all the time, that's what did it for me, and that's why it's right at right in the middle.
For my number 4, ironically, I would say Hawkeye, and the reason why I put Hawkeye there is because ironically, Hawkeye is the most mid MCU TV show ever. So it's kind of a disrespect, but it's also why I have it at 4. It's because it is the most lukewarm show ever. I don't outright hate it. I don't love it. I have no feelings towards it. Whereas with Falcon Winter Soldier and What If, I had genuine problems with things like the script and how things were orchestrated and stuff. I have no necessarily harsh feelings like that. I'm not going to critique Hawkeye's script. I thought for what it was good. It was a low stakes, ground level, Hell's Kitchen kind of vibe. I know they weren't necessarily in Hell's Kitchen, but it's the same premise of just a bunch of average Joes really harping on Hawkeye's PTSD. I like the way that they showed him as going deaf. It showed him more vulnerable. It showed him kind of grieving where kind of everybody else has moved on. At the end of the day, he's still dealing with the stuff that he had to deal with for 5-10 years as being part of the Avengers. Kingpin, as cool as it was to see him, because I'm such a die-hard fan of all 3 seasons of Daredevil, it was very jarring for me to see him because he's in a comic book accurate suit. He's all of a sudden basically unkillable. He's a wrecking ball. He's all of a sudden got a bunch of powers that were not explained before. But then in interviews and stuff, Vincent D'Onofrio, the actor, is basically saying this is the same Kingpin. He just got blipped. And I'm like, I didn't know
Right.
being blipped gave you superpowers. They could do something with that, but that's why.
Here's where things are going to get a little shaky for me. All right. Things are going to get a little shaky because 2 and 3 are kind of like right at each other. They're interchangeable. I think it kind of just depends on what I'm feeling. Okay. Number 3, I got WandaVision.
Okay.
I got WandaVision in number 3, and I think mainly because the first few episodes, as much as I loved how they did the first couple of episodes with her showing her, them being in black and white, and then going through the decades, the show started off relatively slow, confusing. Didn't really know what was going on. You did know, but you didn't know. It definitely picked up. I really enjoyed the fact that they did start showing, oh, okay, well, she's not really in the 80s, 90s, or whatever. This is all her mind. Nothing in there is real. And I did love the fact that she enslaved an entire city, bro. Like, I don't think other people understand how much power that takes. She enslaved the entire city and made them do everything that she wanted to do. I enjoyed all of it. And let's be, bringing in Monica Rambeau as Photon, I was hyped for it. I think the gripe that I'm having is her brother, Pietro. I'm not understanding what they're trying to do with him, because that is Quicksilver from the X-Men. So I'm not sure what they're trying to do.
It felt like a fake out. It felt like a cop out.
Yeah, because I didn't know what was really going on. And still to this day, like, I'm confused on it. And that might actually be like one of my only gripes with the show, and the fact that it started off slow. Other than that, I loved how they set her up to become the Scarlet Witch. I loved how she was able to, it's showing just the grief she's going through. Like you said, that emotional payoff, what a lot of people don't realize, she had to kill her man.
And her kids.
Twice, yeah.
So my number 3 is, I feel like you and I are just interchangeable at this point.
Because
from here on out, it's just up in the air. For number 3, it's Loki.
Yes, sir.
Loki is number 3. And I actually have some very specific reasons why I like and I don't like it. So first of all, this show for me is saved on the soundtrack alone. And that's a different perspective to look at it through. The soundtrack for Loki is probably, if not my favorite, it's got to be top 2 for the best soundtracks in all of the Disney Plus Marvel shows.
You might be right.
It's haunting. It's emotional. It takes time to breathe. It's very cerebral. It's floaty. It gives off that mystical vibe that really perfectly describes the show. So normally I don't talk about soundtracks, but for me, this is the soundtrack I go back to still to this day, and I go back and I listen to because I love it. I loved Tom Hiddleston, again, reprising his role as Loki. However, one of my gripes is they don't do a good job of explaining how he's able to switch so quickly, because the Loki that we see is technically the Loki from the Battle of New York, who is still very evil and very corrupted. He's still not the guy who's experienced all of the character development that we've seen, but yet he's the same Loki, and all of a sudden he watches one little flashback scene, and all of a sudden he's back to goofy Loki. Kind of had a gripe with that. Lady Loki, I don't necessarily have an opinion on. I found her annoying at times, but I also found her cool. Her decision to stab Kang at the end kind of didn't sit well with me, because I feel like they did it to force a conflict. I loved Jonathan Majors as Kang at the end, even though the last episode felt like a lot of talking. For me, it was good talking, because they were really driving home the stakes of what they're setting up in the future, which personally I believe to be Secret Wars. And when you start playing with the multiverse, they are using Kang as kind of like that bridge. So normally I'd be upset for that kind of the finale to be so boring, but I wasn't upset. I think just along the way, it started to sputter out, and it had moments where my excitement rose and then my excitement kind of fell. So there was a lot of ups and downs, kind of like how Hawkeye was just this. Loki was going all over the place, but to stabilize it for me, what solidified as my number 3 was the soundtrack.
That soundtrack was dope, man. I'm not gonna lie. And that's not why I got it at number 2. Loki is my number 2. The soundtrack was hard. Top 2, top 3, maybe even number 1. Who knows? But again, for me, the reason why Loki's number two is the setup. It's setting so many different things up for this multiverse. And like you said with Jonathan Majors, man, he did amazing as Kang. Just showing us the multiverse, how it works, how things are going, and how affecting one thing here can affect it over there was amazing to me. Yeah, I understand where you were doing, why the emotions were going like this, because I want to say the episode where with all the other Lokis and them having to go through that little cloud of monster, or whatever. Yeah, that was kind of one of those things where I was like, yo, what's really going on here? Like, let's get back to the matter at hand.
Well, personally, I would think that the third episode was the worst, because that was the one with him and Sylvie trapped on that planet, and it felt like you went nowhere. There was no advancement in the plot whatsoever.
I agree. There wasn't any real. There was no development, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing more. You weren't showing us anything more going into the show. Just kind of talking. But yeah, I got Loki at number two, man. Just the setting up of absolutely everything. Because if you think about it, like you said, setting up Secret Wars, that setup kind of sort of set us up for Multiverse of Madness, and this is going to set us up for more and more and more. I'm sure we're going to see Loki again. I have no doubt about it. In my mind.
They're filming season 2 right in a month for Loki, so we'll see.
There you go. There you go.
Before I go into my second one, just real quick, just make sure we don't kind of leave him forgotten. Owen Wilson as Mobius was great. Thought he was great.
Owen yeah.
Wilson, you can't forget
him.
Man,
yeah. Owen Wilson did a great job.
Great.
He did a great job.
Yeah.
Amazing job.
I'm very disappointed we didn't get a wow. Like how he always says it. Wow.
Well, it's MCU, man.
Yeah,
It's the MCU,
right,
so
right.
they probably gonna leave. They're gonna leave his other
little catchphrase. Yeah.
His other catchphrases, out of here, bro. This is MCU stuff. I think this was a little bit more serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
A little bit more serious. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Loki, whoa, hey, you're not supposed to be here. Whoa.
It was pretty dark.
Yeah, it was. It was probably right under Moon Knight as for MCU shows. Yeah, probably the next one that's the darkest.
My number 2 is WandaVision. And let me tell you, at this point, since if you're following, you probably know what's going to be 1 and what's going to be 2 for us. But I really struggled with maybe putting this at my number 1 spot. I actually spent a while kind of really dissecting it, going back, watching some scenes, and reevaluating myself. But for me, WandaVision was the most creative MCU show out of all 6. Each MCU show has their own creative spin on things, some more than others, but WandaVision just took that concept and flipped it on its head. Mm-hmm. You start out with episode 1, and mind you, this is the first Marvel TV show they did, so they're already doing something new, and they hit us with these first 2 episodes that weren't very well received because people had no idea what was going on. They really do a great job of going decade by decade, teasing 80s type of TV shows, 90s TV shows, to where you had The Office references and Modern Family. I mean, It's incredible. I love the fact that they spun it on its head and it became kind of like a testimony to all the different TV shows throughout time. I 100% agree with you that Pietro was mishandled, because if they never had a plan for him, it showed. All of that just to have a joke at the end of his name being Ralph Boner, I was actually upset, because you don't bring in as big of an actor as that and who he represents in the other universe, just for lack of a better term. Yeah, comic relief. The reason why I decided to bump this down from number 1, because at first I had it, I was like, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna be controversial, but I bumped it down because I looked back at the ending, and I think they fumbled the bag on the finale, because it became the stuff that you hear me complain about all the time, the bam pow, I'm gonna punch you in the face until you learn a lesson kind of thing. And it became a slug out, it became a knockout, drag out, punching fest, and there was no payoff to any of the plot points we were waiting to finally get connected. It was great seeing Wanda's comic accurate costume. I love Catherine Hahn as the villain, as Agatha, and her theme song slaps. Everybody knows
it does, man. And she did. I think she actually did a really good job as being Agatha Harkness. I mean, just trying to be a friendly neighbor. And what's funny about the show is you don't think about it because she's always there.
My big takeaway from one of my most negative takes on this show was I really did not like how Wanda enslaved this whole town. We find out at the end, and then she has that spaz out where she freaks out and then chains them with her magic, and they're all choking, and they're like, Wanda, please let me go. I have a family, I have a wife, I have a kid. And she's like, basically I'm forcing you to live out my twisted fantasies. And it's really hard to get with that. I understand where they're coming from, but they really wrote it out only for them to completely push it under the rug at the end, because Wanda starts to walk away after she decides to let them go. And Photon's like, Wanda, they'll never know what you did for them. And she just kind of walked away. And they're making it seem like she did the heroic thing by letting them go. But in reality, she's only doing the basic, like, she should be in jail right now.
She should be in maximum security prison.
She should be in the raft, because at this point, like, that's just wrong. And I hate the fact that they just blew over it, and they was like, you know what, Wanda, it's okay, go to your mountain, go to your cabin, go read the Darkhold. It's okay. Hey, take the rest of the year off. You deserve it.
She needs to have 4 inhibitor collars on,
right?
Everywhere. But I think the reason why they didn't do that, let's be honest, it's Wanda. Come on, man. You're gonna go. Listen, Wanda, you're arrested. You think she's gonna go along with that?
Okay, so maybe not so much her receiving the punishment, but not the other characters acting like she didn't do anything. Like Photon, her specifically going, "Oh, Wanda, they'll never know what you did for them." If I was her and I wanted to do anything about Wanda, hey, you did something wrong. Like, that's messed up,
bro. I'd look at you and be like, "What's wrong with you?"
Exactly.
What is wrong with you, bro?
And that's why I changed my mind for making it my first favorite. So I think it's pretty easy to tell what your next one is, but go.
I think it's safe to say that both of our number ones is Moon Knight. For me, I mean, man, oh man, I loved the action. I actually do like Moon Knight's opening. I like the theme that he has, because it's, that Egyptian kind of
orchestral.
I love that type of music. I love that theme. If anybody who knows me, man, my name is Reek. So them being the whole Egyptian aspect of it really got me intrigued. Not only that, but just being able to connect with Mark Spector, Moon Knight, going through what a lot of people probably don't know, going through something super traumatic and then having to mask myself with somebody else, another personality, another face, just to get by, and then realizing I've masked myself for so long that I'm not even that person anymore. That person who I was is not gone, but it's still in there. And then, I have this other mask on that I have to wear for the people, for whoever, just to make myself feel better. So that, in those aspects, that's where I really connected with him. And on top of that, vengeance. I don't do the, yo, I'm gonna put you in jail. I don't do that. So I like handling things right then and there. And I loved it. I love the scenes. I love the action. And then, of course, just loving to see Mark go from being Steven to flashing to going to be Mark and then coming back to Steven. Mm-hmm. I loved every single one of those scenes, mainly because we honestly didn't even know if he was turning into Mark or Jake Lockley at all. Mm-hmm. So all of those is put at number one. Obviously, some gripes about it was a little bit of the writing. Like we said, that one episode, I think it was 3, was kind of drawn out. Like you said, man, the ending of the whole bing bang boom fight, and now we've won. But overall, man, I loved it. It's got to be my number one, my favorite, of course.
Well, you completely spoiled mine. It's like no one saw it coming, right? My number one would be Moon Knight. Wow, that's crazy. But yeah, no, so I would say my number one is definitely Moon Knight, because all of the same reasons you mentioned. I would also say that what stuck out to me was the fact that it was creative. Mm-hmm. The more I watch it, I 100% do see all the flaws that other people are mentioning. The more I rewatch it, I can nitpick to every single scene, every single episode. I find a lot of things wrong with it, and I know I had a lot of glowing reviews for the finale when I first watched it. I think I needed to take a couple days before I really reviewed it, because once I rewatched it, I definitely did not like it as much as I did before. But the sole uniqueness of the show and the first couple episodes alone were enough to keep me hooked, and I was ready every single week for Moon Knight. I was so hyped. I was getting up early in the morning to watch the premiere because of Oscar Isaac's compelling performance.
Great job.
Figuring out who Steven really is, who Mark really is, seeing them bicker and learn how to work together. I like you said, I love the soundtrack. I love the very few action scenes that we got. I know there wasn't a lot, but what were there were very well choreographed. The CGI was hit or miss, but I know I hold a lot of MCU shows and MCU movies to a very strict level. This is one of those few shows where I finally was able to turn off my brain for a little bit, my nerd comic book brain, and I was able to just enjoy it and then kind of worry about the nitpicks later. I definitely didn't like the finale where he blacked out only to have him see that he's got the upper hand, because I felt like that was incredibly lazy. I felt like they should have elaborated. And this just kind of segues into my overall problem with every single MCU show so far. There's pretty much only 6 episodes for every single one. WandaVision had a couple more. But
9, I believe, that
like
WandaVision had, but
it was like 8 or 9. But they aren't doing us justice. They're not giving us the full developed story, which is why in almost every single MCU show, they have episode 5 usually being the best one because it's building up to something huge. But then they only give themselves 40 minutes to 50 minutes to close it out in the finale, which means they have to throw everything together. And a lot of this could be solved by just adding 2 more episodes. That's all we really need. And that's what's causing a lot of these shows for me to be mid. You know, you've got the Multiverse of Madness. I'd like to call these TV shows the Multiverse of Mid, because like there's no great. I personally don't think any of these Marvel TV shows are to the level of some of these movies.
Every single show was a 7 or below.
Which is why we're ranking it TV shows, not grand scheme MCU media.
Which is wild if you think about that. Every single one of these shows was a 7 or below. So imagine what we would like our number 6. This show is probably like a 2 or like a 3 or 4, maybe, if that. So
like I'm not losing any sleep over the ones in the bottom tiers. The best part about opinions and about observations is that they can change over time, kind of like how I was really struggling between WandaVision and Moon Knight. My opinion, your opinion is not the right opinion. It's just our opinion. And so I feel like allowing myself to really go back at my old notes and my old ratings, my old reviews, and just looking back on what I said compared to what I've learned now. You can never expect someone's opinion to be the period, the finale to what they believe.
It'll always change, man. Especially if you actually take the time. Just take the time and go back and rewatch something, go back and relook at it. And like you said, write notes down and what you liked or what you didn't like, go back and look at it and see if you actually liked it or didn't like it, because we've done that many a times. I've gone back and watched a movie. Like I've actually gone back and watched like an Endgame. I've been like, you know what? Infinity War is better.
I agree.
Infinity War is better. I loved Endgame, but the nostalgia of seeing it the first time, I was like, wow, this is way better than Infinity War. Exactly. Then I went back and watched both movies back to back. And I was like, yeah, Infinity War, the conquest for Thanos, the struggle the fact that they were all separated and they kind of had to, fight him individually. It was, So like you said, man, opinions can always change, but this was our opinions for these 6. And I don't think it's I guess you could say surprise that number 1 is Moon Knight.
Now we're going to go ahead and throw it back to y'all. Let us know in the comments. Let us know what your favorite MCU TV show is that they've released so far. If you want to rank them 1 to 6, go for it. We'd love to see what you guys think. At the end of the day, we'd love to hear your opinion because everyone has a unique perspective. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.